I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt,
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office
of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution
of the United States.
So help me God.
From NBC News in Washington, the Clinton inaugural. Here are Tom Brokaw and Bryant Gumbel.
That's a new presidential Cadillac, by the way. $250,000, armor-plated. It does not have a waterbed or a jacuzzi in it, but it has an enormous amount of security arrangements, obviously.
What did I read when he was told about it? He asked to see a picture of it? Guess it met with his approval. John Cochran is still on the White House grounds. John, I don't want to put you on the spot. What kind of a view have you got?
Well, I'm just about to wave to him, and I don't know if he'll wave back. No, he's turning the other way, talking apparently to Chelsea again. The Bushes, as you said, will be very gracious to these people. I think the Bushes do like the Clintons. There is no personal hard feeling there, but I'll tell you there's some hard feeling between the Stads. The Bush people really don't like the Clinton people that much. Privately, they're saying some rather unkind things about them. But I suppose that's to be expected. It was a hard-fought campaign, but certainly between the primary contestants here, I think there are good feelings.
John, what about the people who have been fired? I mean, is Bill Clinton going to inherit an empty administration?
Well, you will have
Let's look inside now. John, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're seeing President and Mrs. Bush now preparing to receive the Clintons and the dog Millie, best-selling author at the White House.
Welcome, welcome. Welcome to your new house. Good luck.
Millie? Good luck.
Hey, listen, just a confidential letter. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish him all the best in Jackson.
Here we go. How about a picture?
It looks like obviously the color.
Over here.
Good luck to you.
Mr. President.
Good luck.
The Gore family behind him. Corinna is 19, Kirsten is 16, Sarah is 13, and Albert III is 10. He was the young man who was hit by the car outside of the Baltimore Orioles baseball park and almost died, and then had a lasting effect on the Gore family. Ron Brown and Alma Brown.
It's tough for us to make out the conversation, but if there are strange feelings, they certainly are not evident. George and Barbara Bush being extremely gracious, and what we could hear extremely friendly towards those in the Clinton party. And Millie came in for a good share of presidential attention, too, we might add.
Welcome, welcome, the president said. Welcome to your new house. I wish him all the best in the duties that lie before him. Tim Russett's down there on the Capitol area right now. Tim?
Tom, on the speech, one point I should make is that Bill Clinton insisted that he write this speech himself. Unlike the convention speech, which had a lot of different people contributing words, he said, I'll take your ideas, I'll take your thoughts, but these are going to be my words. He was very taken by his trip to Monticello, where Thomas Jefferson put his own pen to pad, and today, whether it's good or bad, the words you will hear will be Bill Clinton's very own.
Thank you, Tim. I rode on part of that bus trip from Monticello to Washington, D.C. with Bill Clinton, and we did talk about the challenges of writing a memorable inaugural speech, and it is the moment on this day that sets the tone for the first 100 days or so of the administration. A lot of people will be judging the failure or success of this day based on what he has to say here. He said that he had read all of the inaugural speeches as he prepared for this one.
Even Harrison's?
Even Harrison's, which ran for 2 hours. He did it in a driving rainstorm and then died a month later. That's a cautionary tale.
You and I were talking a little bit earlier about the expectations game for this speech and how difficult it is going to be for Bill Clinton. And in one sense, we're a little bit surprised, too, because the schedule calls for Clinton to give his inaugural address and then that to be followed by the speech on Pulse of Morning by the poem by Maya Angelou, and then the invocation, or the benediction, rather, by Billy Graham. One would have thought it would have gone the other way, but that's
Billy
what the
Graham
schedule
is the
calls
most, is the preacher to the president. He spent last night at the White House.
This is 7th?
He was chosen today by Bill Clinton to appear here. He is a Baptist, of course. A lot of well-known American evangelists and preachers have come and gone, but Billy Graham has endured, and he will have a place in these inaugural ceremonies. We are looking now again at the White House. As they prepare to leave there, they're beginning to run about 15 minutes behind schedule. They were due to be in the motorcade at 10:45 Eastern Time this morning. It's now coming up on 11, according to the official tentative schedule, as they describe it. Clinton and Gore's parents were to be arriving at the platform door. Well, all of that has obviously been delayed.
Yeah, the moment they shoot for actually is noon, but there is nothing in the Constitution, frankly, that says it has to be done at noon. That is the objective.
Chipper Gore and Marilyn Quayle. Vice President Dan Quayle on the right, and his successor Al Gore on the left. They served in the United States Senate. Senator Stevens behind him. Congressman Bob Michael, who is the Republican leader of the House, immediately coming out. Richard Gephardt, who is the majority leader in the House of Representatives. Barbara Bush and Hillary Clinton, arm in arm. The President of the United States and his successor, Bill Clinton. Speaker Foley from the House behind him.
Along with Senator Wendell Ford of the inaugural committee, the four of them will be riding over together in the first automobile. There is actually a very short motorcade, only 5 automobiles involved. The second will be the outgoing First Lady and the incoming. They'll be riding with Senator Mitchell and Representative Bob Michael.
George Bush, Bill Clinton, Foley, and Ford in that car. They'll have something to say to each other. There are 4 pals. I mean, they've been around a while. Okay, this is the route that they'll be following now. It's about 1.2 miles up Pennsylvania Avenue to the nation's capital. Pennsylvania Avenue has been restored in the last 20 years. When John F. Kennedy came down it, he said, can't we do something about Pennsylvania Avenue? It's been allowed to deteriorate to a pretty seedy condition. Inside the presidential limousine, George Bush waving goodbye, departing the White House now. 8 years as Vice President of the United States, 4 years as President. He bids farewell to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, most prestigious address in the world.
Tom, as you noted, this ride will probably be enjoyable for both Bush and Clinton as they go on over. 'Twas not ever thus, as history has noted several times. FDR on the way to his, waving gleefully, Hoover staring straight ahead, Eisenhower and Kennedy not speaking to each other. Strained times between Ford and Carter, but this one should be relatively cordial.
There's a new informality to these occasions. People tend to forget that John F. Kennedy, who was a very contemporary president, at least in my memory, arrived here in top hat. The last president to do that. A silk top hat.
Wasn't it?
I know you have a lot of those.
No doubt. Wasn't it Eisenhower that started the run on Homburgs?
He had the Homburg.
When he was inaugurated?
That's right. The top hat did not catch on, however.
No, it didn't.
And
quite
John
make.
Kennedy, in fact, did not do a lot for the hat industry because he refused to wear one after that, almost everywhere. And hats went out of fashion in America, now replaced by baseball caps. NBC's Tom Pettit is down there on the motorcade route. Tom?
Tom, this is one of the most magnificent views of the Capitol and the whole inaugural process and the parade itself this afternoon. security, as you might well imagine, is very serious. It is seen and it is not seen. There are at least 5,000 Capitol Hill police in uniform around Capitol Hill. There are military guards along the route that the motorcade will pass. There are sharpshooters on top of several of these buildings. There's what they call the counter-assault team, which is like commandos who are prepared in case anything really untoward should happen, and their job would be to rescue whoever needs rescuing. It's a very, very clear day, and the security people will have no difficulty at all seeing the motorcade, which we're looking at now. The motorcade itself is flanked by not only D.C. police, but also by Secret Service agents. And within the crowds, there are a number, we don't know exactly how many, of undercover police, both from the FBI and from the local District of Columbia and from the United States Secret Service.
Thank you, Tom. Headed along the parade route this morning, and security, of course, is a primary consideration. It is the responsibility of the Secret Service, but they enlist a lot of people, the D.C. police and all the other law enforcement agencies they can get their hands on. Many of them are undercover here. I even saw today a Tennessee State Highway Patrol car that had been driven up here, I suppose to help with the Gores and the Tennessee delegation.
Considering the excitement of the week, the crowd seems rather restrained. I'm surprised. Let's see if Margaret Larson has a different take on that. She's also along the route of the motorcade. She's up the Navy Memorial. Margaret, are our mics just not picking it up or somewhat restrained?
Brian, I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. As you can probably hear in the background, there's a reggae band providing some of the pre-parade entertainment, so we're having a little bit of audio difficulty, but I can tell you that on this very clear day with the crowds lining the streets, up to 250,000 people expected later to see the inaugural parade, we are awaiting the motorcade to bring Mr. Clinton and Mr. Bush to the swearing-in ceremony, of course, that will end the first-term presidency of George Bush and begin the Clinton era. We see now a motorcade proceeding this way, led by motorcycle police officers. We await the rest of the procession.
All right, thank you very much, Margaret Larson. We'll tell you that what happens here is the motorcade arrives at the Capitol. The rest of the party will go directly to the platform, but the principals, that is the Bush family, the Clinton family, and the Gore family, will be taken to a holding room, and then they'll be coming out onto that magnificent platform with this spectacular view of Washington. The motorcade from the White House to the Capitol now on the final leg of this momentous trip that it is making, escorted by outriders and by very heavy security, both in the motorcade and along the entire route. The final 55 minutes of the administration of George Herbert Walker Bush, just 55 minutes away from the beginning of the administration of Bill Clinton.
Tom, it's somewhat interesting, as we disappeared for station break before, you noted that once upon arrival at the Capitol, while most will go to their positions at the podium, at the stand, rather, the principals will go to holding rooms in the Capitol. Surprisingly, it was George Bush who asked for separate holding rooms. We understand that is unusual, that in the past they were held en masse, but that George Bush had asked for separate holding rooms, and so the Bushes will go to one, the Clintons to another, and the Gores to another. And so you've got to think that maybe George Bush is anticipating these final moments will be somewhat emotional.
He is an emotional man. You know, we've seen him on many occasions, especially with military forces and other moments in his presidency when he begins to weep and his voice breaks. NBC's Bob Kerr is down there on the parade route right now. Bob?
Well, actually, Tom, I'm right outside the door at the Capitol where everyone will be going in. We see the lead motorcycles now, the security detail coming in, and soon we'll be following all those cars. You were speculating a little while about how interesting the conversations must be and have been in history when the president-elect rides with the president up to this occasion. And we were speculating up here that one of the interesting things might even be in that there's one car, I guess, that's carrying all the children, Chelsea Clinton and the Gore children. I wonder if they fought over what to listen to on the radio as they were coming up here. Anyway, here they come, Tom, and the first car, of course, is President-elect Clinton
and President Bush. They're going into what's called the law library door, which is the original Supreme Court of the United States. This is where it first was, and they go in that entrance. The second car, of course, carrying Mrs. Bush and Mrs. Clinton. Each of the cars has members of the Congressional Inauguration Committee as well. Let's see what we see as they get out here.
These are exceptional moments. All the dignity and the power of the United States and the essence of democracy played out right here.
All right.
The outgoing president and the incoming president riding in the same car to the nation's capital to begin the peaceful transformation of power.
They are being met there by the Sergeant-at-Arms of the Senate and House, and from here they'll be proceeding to those separate holding rooms.
Bill Clinton has chosen a blue tie for the occasion.
Tom, there's a great pressure here, too, as well, as the Democrats take control again, or are about to take control again. There's some accountability that comes with controlling both houses in the White House. No more political cover, no more finger pointing, no more excuses, really. One of the Clinton pollsters, Stan Greenberg, has said they are really on the line now. There has to be some movement here. America says goodbye, at least for now, to George Bush in a somewhat mixed way.
Bob Kerr, we're looking now at pictures of the children, the Gore children arriving with Chelsea. All will be attending private schools here, Beauvoir, St. Albans, and Sidwell Friends. The eldest, Gore child, is a student at Harvard. Harvard is in second place in this administration. Another Yale graduate, Bill Clinton of the Yale Law School, about to become president, succeeding a Yale graduate, George Bush.
Can you imagine, Tom, how Bill Clinton must be feeling at this moment? I mean, he was really dismissed as a long shot when he got into this. The man he rode up here with today was at 70% in the polls when Bill Clinton decided to get in the race. And now I guess the self-proclaimed comeback kid is here, ready to take the microphone and address the nation.
We're now back outside on the platform as the members of the various parties begin to assemble there. While they're getting themselves into place and while the President-elect of the United States is composing himself finally, you're looking at Ron Brown, the new Commerce Secretary, outgoing Democratic National Chairman.
Continue to focus our eyes on the Capitol, and you can see former President Jimmy Carter in the upper left of your screen, Walter Mondale just behind him, just Tip O'Neill. There also just a few of the dignitaries who have come to witness the swearing in of Bill Clinton. As Tom noted a little bit earlier, all former chief executives and their vice presidents were invited, but the others, for one reason or another, declined, huh?
Yeah, and Walter Mondale, by the way, was invited to have a major role in the foreign policy of this administration, and he accepted the ambassadorship to Moscow, and then that was Friday, and then Sunday declined, and they're not entirely sure why, because he was eager to get back in. He had been a candidate for the UN job and then accepted the Moscow job and then decided that he would not accept it. The President Carter and Mrs. Carter right there. Katie Couric is down there somewhere in the midst of all that.
Tom, I've never felt shorter in my entire life. I'm not sure if you can see me, but right now I'm shaking the hand of Senator Sam Nunn. He's somewhere up there in that whole sea of cameras, Senator Nunn. So tell me, this is a big day for you, isn't it?
Oh, it's a great day. The weather's wonderful. I think he's going to make a terrific speech and get off to a terrific start.
This seems like more or less a nonpartisan celebration. Everybody seems to be very affable. A lot of glad-handing and backslapping going on around here.
Well, I hope it lasts a while. It's always natural on an Inauguration Day, but I think this one may last a little while.
All right, well, we'll have to see. Tom, listen, if I can explain the geography down here just a bit, and Bryant, you too. In front of me is sort of the inner circle. This is the inner podium area. There are about 300 seats here. This is reserved for family members, some of the Senate aides of Senator Gore when he was a senator here on Capitol Hill. There's some other famous faces. I just saw Admiral William Crowell, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who played a really pivotal role in rallying that military support for Bill Clinton during the campaign. Senator William Fulbright is in the inner podium area. Of course, Bill Clinton worked for him as an intern when he was a student at Georgetown University. Now, of course, I am relegated to the outer circle, the senators. Actually, this is a real who's who of Capitol Hill. I'm next to Senator Sarbanes and Metzenbaum. Behind me is Senator Dodd, Senator Lautenberg, Carl Levin's there, Paul Simon. I mean, everybody who's anybody is sitting right in this very corner, you guys.
Katie, what's the comfort level up there? How cold is it?
You know, it is really comfortable, and I hate to say it, I'm actually hot. I'm wearing my jimmies, or whatever you call them, Bryant, long johns, and I ran up here so quickly that I'm actually thinking about taking my coat off. But, Senator Sarbanes, it's really comfortable. You look bundled up, but it's pretty comfortable, don't you think?
The sun's out, which makes a tremendous difference. Yeah,
that's right.
It's all
We're
right.
very fortunate. We're in the sun, and I didn't mention that, but behind all these senators are some of the Senate spouses as well, and we were meeting and greeting them earlier this morning. But everyone is very excited here and looking forward to see the president-elect.
Of course, one of the reasons why Ronald Reagan elected to have the swearing in on the west front of the Capitol as opposed to the east side back in 1981, they cited economy for the move, that a new platform did not have to be built, that in fact there was a natural arrangement there, and so many of the dignitaries here in Washington take advantage of that arrangement, what seems to now be a new tradition since President Reagan started it in '81, giving him an opportunity to look west to his roots and at the same time turn his back on Moscow, we might add.
Yeah, and you do have the feeling as you stand there that you can look all the way across the country. You have it does open before you. We have seen the Bill Clinton speech. We will not try to upstage him in any way, but it is short and it is to the point. And we'll be hearing it from Bill Clinton himself before too long. We are still in the holding room at the Capitol. The crowd is assembling. Everything is in order. It's quiet in the world for this transformation of power, January 20th, 1993. The crowd has assembled now, awaiting the arrival of Bill Clinton, Al Gore, and George Bush, along with Dan Quayle, of course, there, looking out across the mall, the Washington Memorial, all the way to the White House down Pennsylvania Avenue as Bill Clinton prepares to take the oath of office. We should be seeing them in the next just few moments. George Bush was in office only 4 years, but what an exceptional time that was in the world, Bryant. We tend to forget that in the last 4 years, Gorbachev was removed from office. The USSR collapsed. The Berlin Wall came down. East Germany was dissolved. Czechoslovakia and the satellites of the Soviet Union embraced democracy. We had a war in the Persian Gulf, and at this moment we have a bloody tribal war in what used to be Yugoslavia, and American Marines on the ground in Somalia, to say nothing of a still simmering war with Iraq. It really has been an exceptional time of change, and we'll hear more about change from Bill Clinton today.
Of course, George Bush's supporters would like all to remember that was his legacy. You can see the lady there in the white coat. That is Bill Clinton's mother, Mrs. Kelly, who was a bit of a character herself during the, we heard an awful lot about her during the Democratic convention. Obviously a very, very proud time for her. Katie Couric is still out among them there on the, the west portico of the Capitol. Katie, what you get going? Hello, Katie.
Well, as we're awake, Katie.
Oh, there she is.
Hi, Katie.
Okay. We see you. We see you.
Can't hear us. Hi, Katie. Yes.
Yeah, we
okay,
can't
we'll
wait.
come back
We
to
can't see the
you know, there's something for everybody at this inauguration. Mr. Rogers was here for the very young. Then, of course, you had the MTV set for Chelsea and the young teenagers in the Gore family. Judy Collins, Barbara Streisand, Jack Nicholson for Bill and Hillary. Their whole generation represented. Virginia Kelly was at a party the other night and almost passed out with excitement when she saw Mickey Rooney. And they had a real bonding in a Georgetown living room here.
And there's Chelsea. They will, all those involved, the principals involved in the proceedings will make their way to the platform in stages, culminating, of course, with President-elect Clinton's arrival at the platform. But the wives will move together first, Mrs. Quayle and Mrs. Gore, then followed by Mrs. Bush and Mrs. Clinton. And then Al Gore will come up with Dan Quayle. And lastly, of course, President-elect Clinton. She's got her own escort, and she's beaming.
One does have to feel for Chelsea Clinton, however. 12 years old, going on 13, a difficult time in any young person's life, wherever you live, but now to be the only child in the White House, the object of all this attention, the absolute apple of her parents' eye, the painful decision, as they described it, to enroll her in a private, not public school here in Washington, which they can criticize. There's President Carter talking with Congressman Ron Dellums and with Ron Brown. It's worth remembering that when Jimmy Carter left office 12 years ago, everybody said, well, that's it. No Southern governor will ever be elected president of the United States again. And the first time the Democrats get back in, it's a Southern governor.
There was a rumor for a time that Justice Thurgood Marshall, now of course retired from the Supreme Court, would not only be attending the swearing-in ceremonies, but might in fact hold the Bible and do the swearing-in of Bill Clinton. But now we're not even sure if he is healthy enough to make his way on over to the Capitol, and we hope if Katie Kirk sees him, she might just alert us along the line. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the Supreme Court Justice must deliver the oath, although tradition has it that he does. You can see Mrs. Quayle being escorted to her position.
Barbara Bush, who was one of the most popular first ladies, for all of her grace and charm. Somebody who endeared herself to the American public there was Hillary Clinton, who will represent her generation in an entirely different way. Barbara Bush has said that she's often told her children that she married the first man she ever kissed, and then she adds, and they almost always throw up when I say that.
They'll be heading back for Houston today, where they will take occupancy of a rented house while theirs is being constructed. And yes, he will have an office in Houston. We understand that office is being hurriedly completed now, that he intends to go right to work. We assume it will not be too long before he starts to pen his memories.
Times have changed. Thomas Jefferson, who was one of Bill Clinton's political heroes, of course, an icon for all Americans, when he was sworn in as President of the United States, walked back across the Capitol Plaza to his boarding house. Some of his political advance before with him, as well as his Secret Service agents, making sure that he gets to the right place at the right time. Transformation of power on practical terms. That's the Clinton van moving their furniture into the White House.
Some things you can't get around.
That's right. But you know, it's always good to be otherwise occupied on moving day. And Bill Clinton can say, gee, I wanted to help guys, but I was up at the Capitol. I had other things that I had to do.
See ya.
Vice President Dan Quayle and George Bush.
Okay. Dan Quayle, we understand that following the ceremonies today, we'll head out to Andrews Air Force Base, and there, too, Tom, head down to Florida to be tutored in his golf with a good friend named Jim McClain, a teaching pro, down there, and then he's going to try to make his way on out to the golf course and see if he can get his handicap in some kind of decent shape.
John Chancellor, what about the political future of Dan Quayle?
The political future of Dan Quayle resembles at this point the political future of Richard Nixon. And when Nixon stopped being vice president and went more or less into the wilderness for about 8 years and came back and got himself elected president of the United States. That must be in Al Gore's mind, some of these things, what happens to vice presidents, either moving up or moving on later. Quayle says he will not run for the seat of governor of Indiana, which Evan Bayh's seat, which will be open in 1996. Nobody quite understands why he wouldn't do that. He's fairly popular in Indiana. But my guess is that his chance will come in the year 2000, and that you will indeed be hearing from Dan Quayle.
Might be the lesson of Richard Nixon, who ran for governor of California and lost.
Well, Tom, that occurred to me, and Quayle is a good student of politics and certainly remembers that.
Let's just take in this moment, if we can. This needs no description from us. Bush and Bill Clinton were never together in the holding room, we're told, and for all the descriptions of having an administration that looks like America, for this occasion at least, we have a whole lot of white males and ties. Bill Clinton and Al Gore a little more ebullient than George Bush and Dan Quayle, and with good reason, of course. Very close to schedule now. We'll be hearing from Senator Wendell Ford, who will call the proceedings to order, Democrat of Kentucky.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect, William Jefferson Clinton.
Years old, and he has spent almost every waking moment of his adult life preparing for this moment. Candidate for Congress, Attorney General of Arkansas, 5-term governor, once defeated, a force in Democratic politics of the simplest version, a man who had a very challenging presidential campaign and prevailed when many people thought that he would fail, or at least stumble along the way. What is going to happen now is that we're going to hear from Billy Graham, then we'll hear Marilyn Horne with a medley of American music, and then the oath of office. Here's Wendell Ford.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, former President and Mrs. Carter, President-elect Clinton and Vice President-elect Gore, my colleagues and guests. Welcome to the 1993 presidential inauguration. Today, our nation bids a gracious goodbye to an outgoing administration and warmly welcomes in a new one as William Jefferson Clinton takes office as the 42nd President of the United States. this peaceful and orderly transfer of power that we will soon witness is a remarkable tribute to the genius of the Constitution and the enduring strength of our political system and our proud national heritage. Indeed, the eyes of the nation and the world are on us now as we prepare to inaugurate William Jefferson Clinton as President and Albert Gore Jr. as Vice President of these United States. So, President Bush, President-elect Clinton, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as he has been called upon before, we now ask the Reverend Billy Graham to lead our nation in prayer. Reverend Graham.
Shall we pray? Our God and our Father, we thank you for this historic occasion when we inaugurate our new President and Vice President. We thank you for the moral and spiritual foundations which our forefathers gave us and which are rooted deeply in Holy Scripture. Those principles have nourished and guided us as a nation in the past. But we cannot say that we're a righteous people, for we are not. We've sinned against you. We've sown to the wind and are now reaping the whirlwind of crime, drug abuse, racism, immorality, and social injustice. We need to repent of our sins and turn by faith to you. And now on this 20th day of January, 1993, we commit to you President-elect Clinton and Vice President-elect Gore, whom you have permitted to take leadership at this critical time in our nation's history. Help them always to see the office to which they've been elected as a sacred trust from you. We pray that you will bless their wives, who will share so much of the responsibility and burdens. May President-elect Clinton know that he is never really alone, but that the eternal God can be his refuge, and he can turn to you in every circumstance. Give him the wisdom you have promised to those who ask, and the strength you alone can give. We thank you for his predecessor, President Bush, and the dedication he gave to this office. Bless him as he and Mrs. Bush continue their dedicated service to our country in other spheres. We commit this inaugural ceremony to you and ask that the memory of this event may always remind us to pray for our leaders. I pray this in the name of the one who was called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. Amen.
Reverend Billy Graham. Presiding will be Wendell Ford here.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to present the Philander Smith Collegiate Choir from Little Rock, Arkansas. The choir, under the direction of Stephen L. Hayes, will perform City on the Hill, composed by Dr. Marvin V. Curtis.
Just in the loyalty and the
Choir of Columbus Smith College, located in Little Rock, Arkansas. As they give way, the next piece of business is going to be the swearing in of Vice President Al Gore. It'll be done by Supreme Court Justice Byron White, who, in addition to being the senior justice on the bench, is the only one still active appointed by a Democrat.
Now present Justice Byron White, who will administer the vice presidential oath of office to Albert Gore, Jr.
To Harvard, to Vietnam.
Senator,
briefly as a journalist.
you will raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Albert Gore, Jr., do solemnly swear
I, Albert Gore, Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully perform
that I will well and faithfully perform
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
And I know you will, Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. Justice.
A new man is one heartbeat away from the presidency. Senator Al Gore of Tennessee. Expert on arms control on Capitol Hill and a dedicated environmentalist who wrote a very impressive book on the subject about the challenges ahead for the world. Some believe that his approach is too radical, but he feels so strongly about global warming, the place of the internal combustion engine, and government policies in preserving the environment.
And a man who had his own eyes on the White House just 4 years ago when he made a bid for the Democratic nomination, only to come up short and lose out to Michael Dukakis. You see there's a very warm feeling between Al Gore and Bill Clinton.
We'll be seeing a lot of hugs in this administration among men.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have one of the world's best-known sopranos participating in today's ceremony, who will perform an American medley that includes Simple Gifts by Aaron Copland and Make a Rainbow by Portia Nelson. From the Metropolitan Opera, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marilyn Horne.
'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and red and white and black and yellow, tan and brown and tearful blue. These are the colors of children everywhere, just like me and you. Orange skies and meadows of marigold, pink balloons and teddy bear brown. These are the colors that children everywhere love to have around. Make a rainbow, make a rainbow, let the colors dance and shine. Make a rainbow, till that rainbow is a beautiful design. Red and white and black and yellow, all so different yet the same. Rainbows will sparkle when children everywhere answer to one name. Make a rainbow, till the skies are clear above. And we know that the colors of children everywhere shine in a world of love. Red and white and black and yellow, like a rainbow high above. Let us make the colors of children everywhere shine in a world of love.
Marilyn Horne is Bill Clinton's favorite classical artist. You'll recall that she sang for him at the convention last summer. She happened to be in our makeshift studio a little bit earlier today. She said her only complaint was she'd had so little sleep. You see, she's only had 2 hours a night since she hit town.
Welcome to Inaugural Week, Marilyn. This is going to be a very musical administration. It's important to Bill Clinton, and he has here this week, among others, Kathleen Battle, Aretha Franklin, Barbra Streisand, Michael Bolton, Judy Collins, Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac reunited, Michael Jackson. We'll be hearing a lot of American music in the next 4 years.
I mean, there's one event Madonna missed. Part of the musical interlude now will be handled by the Marine Band, playing the Liberty Bell March. And then as we come up on noon, we will have the big moment itself, the swearing in of William Jefferson Clinton as our 42nd president by Chief Justice William Rehnquist.
See, this is very smart production, because what you have here is something that the country would like to see, the Marine Band and playing the music. It also gives you a little flexibility in controlling the clock. I mean, they can play for 3 minutes or for 6 minutes if necessary to hit noon straight up. So they were thinking about that.
Nice pad.
Before this day is out, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear Bill Clinton back on the saxophone again. Tonight he's going to be visiting the MTV Ball, and the informed speculation is that he may sit in on a set or two.
Really?
Yep.
I'd be kind of surprised at that, but you and I may talk about that a little bit. Let's go back out to the platform where Katie Couric has a good vantage point. Katie, what you got? Hello, Katie. Well, evidently we're still having... Hello, Katie.
Tom and Bryant, I'm sitting here in the crowd, and everybody is enraptured with what's going on here. Obviously, Marilyn Horne's performance was magnificent as she sang that American medley, which, by the way, is a medley that Bill Clinton had specifically requested that she sing. They first met about 7 years ago. And so Bill Clinton's certainly happy to see Marilyn Horne here. Obviously, this is a Marine Band performing, I understand, the Liberty Bell. And in just a moment, we're waiting for Senator Wendell Ford from Kentucky, who is chairman of the Committee on Inaugural Celebrations. Yes, there is a committee named that. He'll be introducing Chief Justice Rehnquist, who will then be swearing in President-elect, soon-to-be President Bill Clinton.
All right, Kitty. Thank you. As we noted a little bit earlier, there is nothing in the Constitution that says this has to be done at noon. They strive for it over and over again, and though we're not working with digitals here, we do think we're about 3 minutes short of noon right about now.
There's also nothing in the Constitution that says you have to be sworn in with your hand on the Bible. And 3 presidents have chosen not to do that, but Bill Clinton today has a family heirloom that he'll be using.
He has the option of having that Bible open to any passage he wants. We understand he's elected to open it to a passage from the Epistle of Paul to the Galatians. That passage reads in part, "For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting."
And it was Lady Bird Johnson who was the first wife to hold the Bible for the swearing in of a president. That's a tradition that has been continued since, and we expect that we'll see Hillary Clinton here as well. Some improvisational comic groups in Washington have been having some fun at her expense, unfortunately for her, saying that when Chief Justice Rehnquist says, "Repeat after me," she'll begin to repeat after him.
Well, of course, there was that cartoon where she had her right hand upraised as Chief Justice Rehnquist looked across at Bill Clinton. But from this point on, we, as soon as the band finishes, we come up with a pretty solemn ceremony.
Looking at the band, we'll tell you as well that business is already underway. Boris Yeltsin has sent a wire of congratulations to President-elect Clinton, asking for an urgent meeting. It does not have to be official, he says, if not in the framework of an official visit, then somewhere in a third country to discuss the list of issues we are to implement in the future to develop cooperation. read into that, I need your help right now.
One little small piece of mystery as we approach the swearing in of Bill Clinton, and that is whether or not he will take the formal approach or the more familiar approach when he says his name. Aides say that he has taken his oath of office when being sworn in as governor by saying, "I, Bill Clinton," 5 times. But during rehearsals for this event, he has said his full name, "I, William Jefferson Clinton." So it remains to be seen which he's going to use. Jimmy Carter, as you'll recall, used the informal Jimmy. I think he was the first president to use something other than his given name.
It was George Clinton who was Thomas Jefferson's vice president. Yes. Former governor of New York, a cantankerous guy who didn't think that we ought to have a president, and a lot of speculation that Jefferson chose him only to shut him up for a while. And then he went back to New York. Calling on my memory and my mind's eye to look out across this crowd. I think that this is the largest inaugural crowd that I can remember since 1980 when Ronald Reagan was sworn in. I mean, they reached all the way past the reflecting pool and well onto the mall, starting back down toward Pennsylvania Avenue, and the parade route looks pretty considerable as well.
Maybe you can answer this for me, Tom. I'm not sure. How far does the loudspeaker system, the PA system, extend out from the Capitol building?
I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the moment is at hand.
The Chief Justice of the United States, who will administer the presidential oath of office to William Jefferson Clinton. Chief Justice.
And that court, presided over by Bill Rehnquist, could come in for some very dramatic changes in the administration of Bill Clinton. He is determined to put his stamp on the Supreme Court of the United States.
Governor, are you ready to take the oath?
I am.
Will you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, William Jefferson Clinton, do solemnly swear.
I, William Jefferson Clinton, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
42nd President of the United States, 46-year-old William Jefferson Clinton and his family. Exchanging a very meaningful look with Hillary Clinton.
Part of the 21-gun salute that you can hear reverberating across the reflecting pool of the Capitol. The crowd has broken into spontaneous applause, part of that overflow crowd that we can see from our vantage point here.
When Hillary Clinton was a Washington warrior, a friend drove her home one night, and Hillary Clinton said, "Come in and meet my boyfriend. He's going to be the President of the United States someday." Many young women have said that about their boyfriends. Few have realized it.
Spoken like the father of 3 daughters.
A moment to be treasured. Every 4 years, we have this occasion, the inauguration of a new president. In this case, the changing of administration, a passage of one generation to another, done with order and in a peaceful way and with goodwill. Now, the first and most important speech of his political career as President of the United States.
My fellow citizens, today we celebrate the mystery of American renewal. This ceremony is held in the depth of winter, but by the words we speak and the faces we show the world, we force the spring. A spring reborn in the world's oldest democracy that brings forth the vision and courage to reinvent America. When our founders boldly declared America's independence to the world and our purposes to the Almighty, they knew that America, to endure, would have to change. Not change for change's sake, but change to preserve America's ideals: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Though we march to the music of our time, our mission is timeless. Each generation of Americans must define what it means to be an American. On behalf of our nation, I salute my predecessor, President Bush, for his half-century of service to America. And I thank the millions of men and women whose steadfastness and sacrifice triumphed over depression, fascism, and communism. Today, a generation raised in the shadows of the Cold War assumes new responsibilities in a world warmed by the sunshine of freedom, but threatened still by ancient hatreds and new plagues. Raised in unrivaled prosperity, we inherit an economy that is still the world's strongest, but is weakened by business failures, stagnant wages, increasing inequality, and deep divisions among our own people. When George Washington first took the oath I have just sworn to uphold, news traveled slowly across the land by horseback and across the ocean by boat. Now the sights and sounds of this ceremony are broadcast instantaneously to billions around the world. Communications and commerce are global. Investment is mobile. Technology is almost magical. And ambition for a better life is now universal. We earn our livelihood in America today in peaceful competition with people all across the earth. Profound and powerful forces are shaking and remaking our world. And the urgent question of our time is whether we can make change our friend and not our enemy. This new world has already enriched the lives of millions of Americans who are able to compete and win in it. But when most people are working harder for less, when others cannot work at all, when the cost of health care devastates families and threatens to bankrupt our enterprises great and small, when the fear of crime robs law-abiding citizens of their freedom, and when millions of poor children cannot even imagine the lives we are calling them to lead, we have not made change our friend. We know we have to face hard truths and take strong steps, but we have not done so. Instead, we have drifted, and that drifting has eroded our resources, fractured our economy, and shaken our confidence. Though our challenges are fearsome, so are our strengths. Americans have ever been a restless, questing, hopeful people, and we must bring to our task today the vision and will of those who came before us. From our revolution to the Civil War, to the Great Depression, to the Civil Rights Movement, our people have always mustered the determination to construct from these crises the pillars of our history. Thomas Jefferson believed that to preserve the very foundations of our nation, we would need dramatic change from time to time. Well, my fellow Americans, this is our time. Let us embrace it. democracy must be not only the envy of the world, but the engine of our own renewal. There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America. And so today we pledge an end to the era of deadlock and drift, and a new season of American renewal has begun. To renew America, we must be bold. We must do what no generation has had to do before. We must invest more in our own people, in their jobs, and in their future, and at the same time, cut our massive debt. And we must do so in a world in which we must compete for every opportunity. It will not be easy. It will require sacrifice. But it can be done, and done fairly. Not choosing sacrifice for its own sake, but for our own sake. We must provide for our nation the way a family provides for its children. Our founders saw themselves in the light of posterity. We can do no less. Anyone who has ever watched a child's eyes wander into sleep knows what posterity is. Posterity is the world to come, the world for whom we hold our ideals, from whom we have borrowed our planet, and to whom we bear sacred responsibility. We must do what America does best: offer more opportunity to all and demand more responsibility from all. It is time to break the bad habit of expecting something for nothing from our government or from each other. Let us all take more responsibilities, not only for ourselves and our families, but for our communities and our country. To renew America, we must revitalize our democracy. This beautiful capital, like every capital since the dawn of civilization, is often a place of intrigue and calculation. Powerful people maneuver for position and worry endlessly about who is in and who is out, who is up and who is down, forgetting those people whose toil and sweat sends us here and pays our way. Americans deserve better. And in this city today, there are people who want to do better. And so I say to all of you here, let us resolve to reform our politics so that power and privilege no longer shout down the voice of the people. Let us put aside personal advantage so that we can feel the pain and see the promise of America. Let us resolve to make our government a place for what Franklin Roosevelt called bold, persistent experimentation, a government for our tomorrows, not our yesterdays. Let us give this capital back to the people to whom it belongs. To renew America, we must meet challenges abroad as well as at home. There is no longer a clear division between what is foreign and what is domestic. The world economy, the world environment, the world AIDS crisis, the world arms race, they affect us all. Today, as an old order passes, the new world is more free but less stable. Communism's collapse has called forth old animosities and new dangers. Clearly, America must continue to lead the world we did so much to make. While America rebuilds at home, we will not shrink from the challenges nor fail to seize the opportunities of this new world. Together with our friends and allies, we will work to shape change lest it engulf us. When our vital interests are challenged or the will and conscience of the international community is defied, we will act. With peaceful diplomacy whenever possible, with force when necessary. The brave Americans serving our nation today in the Persian Gulf, in Somalia, and wherever else they stand are testament to our resolve. But our greatest strength is the power of our ideas, which are still new in many lands. Across the world, we see them embraced and we rejoice. Our hopes, our hearts, our hands are with those on every continent who are building democracy and freedom. Their cause is America's cause. The American people have summoned the change we celebrate today. You have raised your voices in an unmistakable chorus. You have cast your votes in historic numbers, and you have changed the face of Congress, the presidency, and the political process itself. Yes, you, my fellow Americans, have forced the spring. Now we must do the work the season demands. To that work I now turn with all the authority of my office. I ask the Congress to join with me. But no president, no Congress, no government can undertake this mission alone. My fellow Americans, you too must play your part in our renewal. I challenge a new generation of young Americans to a season of service, to act on your idealism by helping troubled children, keeping company with those in need, reconnecting our torn communities. There is so much to be done. Enough indeed for millions of others who are still young in spirit to give of themselves in service too. In serving, we recognize a simple but powerful truth. We need each other, and we must care for one another. Today, we do more than celebrate America. We rededicate ourselves to the very idea of America. An idea born in revolution and renewed through 2 centuries of challenge. An idea tempered by the knowledge that but for fate, we, the fortunate and the unfortunate, might have been each other. An idea ennobled by the faith that our nation can summon from its myriad diversity the deepest measure of unity. An idea infused with the conviction that America's long, heroic journey must go forever upward. And so, my fellow Americans, as we stand at the edge of the 21st century, let us begin anew with energy and hope, with faith and discipline, and let us work until our work is done. The Scripture says, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. From this joyful mountaintop of celebration, we hear a call to service in the valley. We have heard the trumpets. We have changed the guard. And now, each in our own way, and with God's help, we must answer the call. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Bill Clinton and his inaugural address, a speech that he wrote himself. No one ringing phrase sticks out of my memory. A speech welcoming change in America, embracing it. A speech directed at inner America rather than at the role of America in the wider world. A call to renewal and a call for every citizen to take part in it.
He hit all the watchwords, Tom. Renewal, sacrifice, responsibility, reform, and for the record, he said change 9 times. And all of us who were worried about how long he might go, he wound up only going about 14 months.
Two principal themes of his administration, the themes that got him here in the first place, that the domestic agenda is the most important one,
Shortly after
and that
the
change is
November
required.
election, President Clinton asked noted educator, historian, and author Dr. Maya Angelou to compose a poem for this historic day. From Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and Wake Forest University, please welcome Dr. Angelo.
Mr. President and Mrs. Clinton, Mr. Vice President and Mrs. Gore, and Americans everywhere. A rock, a river, a tree, hosts to species long since departed, marked the mastodon, the dinosaur, who left dry tokens of their sojourn here on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully, "Come, you may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out to us today, you may stand upon me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. It says, come, rest here by my side. Each of you, a bordered country, delicate and strangely made, proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today, I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the rock were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sang and sings on. There is a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock. So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African, the Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheik, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, the homeless, the teacher. They all hear the speaking of the tree. They hear the first and last of every tree speak to humankind today. Come to me, here beside the river. Plant yourself beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed-on traveler, has been paid for. You who gave me my first name, you Pawnee, Apache, Seneca, you Cherokee Nation, who rested with me, then forced on bloody feet, left me to the employment of other seekers, desperate for gain, starving for gold. You the Turk, the Arab, the Swede, the German, the Eskimo, the Scots, you the Ashanti, the Yoruba, the Kru, bought, sold, stolen, arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream. Here, root yourselves beside me. I am that tree planted by the river which will not be moved. I the rock, I the river, I the tree, I am yours. Your passages have been paid. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out and upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the mastodon then. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
Dr. Maya Angelou, completing the poem on the pulse of morning, asked why Bill Clinton selected her. She said because all of her works talk of all-inclusiveness and touch a chord in as many people as possible. And that's what she tried to paint today, some broad strokes that asked us to look at each other.
I thought it was a very evocative piece of work. The words, tenor, the performance.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of the 1993 presidential inauguration. As soon as the ceremony is over, my colleague on the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the distinguished Senator from Alaska, Ted Stevens, will form the presidential escort to the east front of the Capitol. To conclude our program now, please rise for the benediction by Reverend Billy Graham and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by Marilyn Horne. Reverend Graham.
Our Father, we pray that as we come to the end of this ceremony, that we will long remember the challenges that we have heard. And we dedicate ourselves to do everything in our power to keep those challenges and to dedicate ourselves anew, not only to you, but to America and all the great ideals that we stand for. We pray again that thou wouldst bless the President and the Vice President as they lead us in the years to come. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Marilyn Horne now will sing the national anthem to conclude these ceremonies at the Capitol. There is some official business to be conducted in the Capitol, the signing of the nomination papers for the new cabinet.
Through the perilous fight, for the road was we won.
Well, in stadia across the country, they say play ball after this. But here in Washington, let the Clinton era begin. The business of governing this nation, of restoring its economy, of healing its political divisions, of dealing with a profoundly changed world, now falls on the shoulders of that young man before you, 46-year-old Bill Clinton, the new President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief, Chief Executive.
And with that anthem, most of the solemn moments of this day have been concluded, with the exception of the formal signing of some papers that Bill Clinton will do when he leaves the platform there. Shortly thereafterwards, we understand the Gores will escort the Quails to a Marine helicopter that will still be designated as Marine One, and then the Quails will wait inside that helicopter while the Clintons escort the Bushes. That copter will then proceed on out to Andrews Air Force Base, where the Quails and the Bushes will go their separate ways. The Bushes back to Houston, the Quails on to Florida for a little while before they return here in order that their children might finish out the school year. Katie Couric is still up on the platform. We'll see what kind of an advantage point she's got. Katie?
Hi, you guys. Actually, the senators have been very kind and have told me to stand on my chair since I am such a shrimp here. And it's a really incredible perspective from my vantage point. As you can see, President Clinton and the First Lady are now walking up the steps. There he is shaking hands with everyone, of course, as he is so fond of doing. And it really was a very, very moving experience to be here and witness this. And I think everyone was very inspired by what they saw, the appreciation that President Clinton expressed to former president now, George Bush, which seems almost strange to say at this point.
Katie?
Yes, Tom?
What did the senators think of Bill Clinton's inaugural speech?
Let me ask them, Tom. Senator Sarbanes, what did you think of his speech?
Oh, I thought Governor Clinton gave, President Clinton now, I've got to make that adjustment, gave a very good speech. I was struck it was very short, as a matter of fact, but I thought it was a real challenge to the country and a real call to Americans, all Americans, to join in what lies ahead.
And it was interesting to hear him resurrect so many of the themes used in his campaign of sacrifice, responsibility, and public service, wasn't it?
Those are themes he sounded throughout his public life and that he tried to put into place in Arkansas, and we're hopeful he's going to do it for the country at large.
Tom, we'll get one more opinion from Senator Metzenbaum. If you can come a little closer, Senator, because my mic cord doesn't stretch too far. What did you think of his inaugural address?
I was excited about it. I thought it was uplifting. I thought he talked about the issues that are facing this country and the world, and I think he gave a new sense of hope to those who are without hope at this moment. And I think all of us are happy to get on board and try to put the show on the road.
So Sarbanes and Metzenbaum give the inaugural address 2 thumbs up, Tom and Bryant.
Thank you very much, Katie Couric. I suppose if there is a central theme in all that, apart from change and renewal, it is that we can no longer expect something for nothing. That has been a recurring theme as well. And it's one of the reasons that Bill Clinton and others formed the Democratic Leadership Council to move the Democratic Party more into the center again and not to see it, the role of the federal government, as simply something that dispenses favors to every conceivable group, but the country to get righted is going to have to make some sacrifices.
In keeping with that, Tom, he was talking about responsibility, and it was interesting to note where Bill Clinton varied from the prepared text that we were handed when he was talking about powerful people maneuvering for position in Washington and forgetting about those who sent them here. His text had been written to say whose toil and sweat sends them here and pays their way. He changed it when he delivered it to say sends us here and pays our way.
Awaiting the appearance of the new president of the United States, Bill Clinton, who, following his instincts, is shaking a lot of hands. He's a man who thoroughly enjoys the business of being a politician, talking to a lot of folks, following the debates. He would stay for sometimes an hour in the arena and discuss policy with people, or as one of my colleagues said, he's down there wonking until midnight arrives. We do expect to see him momentarily. He'll go inside the Capitol. He has to sign 4 documents. The new executive order on ethics, which is going to put much more stringent limits on what people can do when they leave office. A proclamation making January 22nd a National Day of Fellowship. He'll nominate officially his 19 cabinet posts and his sub-cabinet posts. Only one of those cabinet appointees or nominees seems to be in some trouble at the moment. We still don't know how much. That's Zoe Baird, who was on the platform today, is a candidate for Attorney General. She did acknowledge that she hired illegal aliens and failed to pay Social Security taxes on them. And there's some question now about how swiftly she'll move through the United States Senate.
Tom, our cameras are focused on the East Front for departure because in advance of that signing, we expect to see the Quails emerge from that front along with the Gores. The Gores will escort the Quails to a Marine helicopter. There inside, they will await the arrival of the Bushes, who will shortly, we would hope and expect, be escorted to that same helicopter by the new President Bill Clinton and his First Lady Hillary.
Let's go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, where the Clinton moving in process is well underway, and NBC's Andrea Mitchell, who is our new White House correspondent, is standing by there right now. Andrea, what's going on at the White House?
Well, this is that very awkward period, the transition. One press aide has arrived, and as well as the National Security Advisor who came prior to the swearing in. But other than that, no one has moved in yet. They are waiting the arrival back here of more staff people in the next couple of hours. They're not going to really move in for a while. They said that tomorrow the boxes will arrive. They still have to shut down the transition office. But they're going to be getting started right away. As you said, there are going to be executive orders, and there are going to also be major policy changes in the next few days by executive order. Among those, the executive orders permitting fetal tissue research. We're expecting on Friday, the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, to have major decisions, including the lifting of the so-called gag order, denying affirmed. And the first cabinet meeting, we believe, will be on Friday.
Andrea, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump right in there because we see, as we can see, the Gores and the Clintons have come out of the Capitol, and they're saying, did I say the Gores and the Clintons? I'm sorry, the Gores and the Quails, of course, have come out and they have bid goodbye to each other on the steps. Dan and Marilyn Quayle heading out to get on the helicopter, and we understand that once they get to Andrews, they, as we said a little bit earlier, will be going on to Florida, but they will be coming back to the nation's capital. They feel very strongly they want to stay here and allow their youngsters to finish out the school year before they move back home to Indiana.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens to both of them, because Marilyn Quayle, obviously a well-trained lawyer, has her own ambitions.
What, remember when I was leaning down?
And Dan Quayle has kind of repaired his image in the closing year of this administration. He has very strong support in the conservative wing of the Republican Party, which does dominate the nomination process, and many believe that he performed more vigorously than his boss during the presidential debates. And politics is something that he has done with some skill, so we'll see whether he decides to run again for President of the United States the next time. I would think he would welcome the relief as well from being the favorite target of stand-up comedians, both professional and barroom variety. For a period of time.
Spotlight gets a little intense every now and then. In the case of Dan Quayle, it was often cruel. You can see Marine One standing by right there. Although it will not be carrying the new president, it will still be Marine One equipment. We understand that one little point of trivia, it's been named Nighthawk now for this particular journey, and Air Force One will become known for this journey by its tail number 2800. That jet will, of course, be delivering the Bushes to Texas.
You know, I'm kind of a student of the perks of power. I think that the hardest thing to give up would be the ease of transportation. I remember saying to Harold Brown when he was outgoing defense secretary, what are you going to miss most? He said, I had my own Air Force. Are you kidding? Mrs. Bush and Mrs. Clinton. Yes. Blue is the order of the day, Brian. Mrs. Clinton, I'm not an authority on this, but it's worth noting, she's a fan of Donna Karan, the designer. Her inaugural ball tonight designed by Sarah Phillips. And this is from Little Rock, Connie Falls. The inaugural day outfit was designed by a woman from Little Rock, Arkansas. She does like the colors red, royal, and purple, we're told. I've now exhausted my entire body of knowledge about the
I was going to let you go. You were doing fine. figure when you get to the height of the heels, I'd jump in, and there you can see the new president, Bill Clinton, and now former president, George Bush, former for a little less than 45 minutes now.
Mrs. Clinton said on a number of occasions how grateful she was to Barbara Bush for her grace and her helpfulness when they visited the White House to take her through that home. That the president said today, former President Bush, welcome to your new house.
Actually, you wonder what kind of thoughts are going through Mrs. Bush's mind right now. There was, of course, a lot of speculation early on this year about whether or not she really wanted another 4 years at the White House. It's no secret that she is a woman madly in love with George Bush and likes his company and would like to have him around and likes his undivided attention. And I would imagine that she's not quite as broken up as he is right now.
We'll be seeing a lot of them in the next 4 years, Bill and Hillary Clinton. And that helicopter will take George and Barbara Bush eventually on a trip that will take them, as he has described it, into the full-time grandchildren business. It's a wonderful phrase, you know, looking at helicopters, about Lyndon Johnson. He once arrived at an airport where there are a lot of helicopters parked, and one of his aides said, "That's your helicopter over there, Mr. President." He put his arm around him and said, "Son, they're all my helicopters." I brought you a little something. George Bush flying over a Capitol where he has served in so many capacities. He was a member of the United States Congress. He was the director of the CIA. He represented his president as ambassador to the United Nations. He was the representative to China. He ran the Republican National Committee. He was vice president of the United States for 8 years and president of the United States for 4 years. So he's been very much a part of Washington, D.C. for most of his adult life.
Long regarded as the man with the perfect resume. And,
right.
I'm sure this was not the ending that he would have written, but it's the ending that's his on this day, as Bill Clinton assumes the presidency.
George Bush raised in the prosperity of a wealthy Connecticut household, genteel WASP family, environment of prosperity and privilege. Private schools and Yale University, served in the Navy World War II, gives way to a young man from Arkansas whose father was killed in a car wreck, raised by a stepfather whom he loved but had conflict with over his stepfather's alcoholism. bright and ambitious, came to Georgetown, then to Yale, then to Oxford, opposed the war in Vietnam, went back home to Arkansas, and began a political career that today brings him to Washington, D.C. as the new president.
Though George Bush talks about going into the grandfather business full-time, those who know him well suspect that he'll have a very difficult time dealing with full-time retirement. They suspect that he will become involved in some kind of active retirement work. Exactly what that entails, no one has clearly defined. John Chancellor, you looked at me quizzically over there. Some thoughts?
Well, George Bush is leaving office as a very popular president. The polls have him at 55% approval rating today. That is second only to Ronald Reagan's astounding 63% approval rating when he left. But it also has to be said that Mr. Bush has lived, I got the figures here somewhere, he has lived in public housing as a government servant for 15 of about the last 20 years, 4 years in the White House, 8 years in the vice presidential residence, 1 year in that beautiful house in Beijing, as when he was the China rep, 2 years in the Waldorf Towers in New York as our representative at the United Nations, and for a fellow who made $200,000 a year as president, his pension is $187,000 a year. So long, Mr. Bush, you did well.
But lest we be swept up by those approval ratings, outgoing presidents are a little bit like second-string quarterbacks. Fans love them in part because they're not making the mistake.
Well, Nixon went out at 24%, Carter went out at 34%, so Reagan and Bush did far better than that.
And there are some who believe that he spent so much time in public housing and so much time insulated from the real-life woes of the American public that it got him in trouble in the course of his campaign, of course. Well, there's no privacy today, and they don't want it. They want the nation to share in all these pictures that you're looking at right now as they now go out of the Capitol to meet the military review that will precede their trip down Pennsylvania Avenue. Chelsea, by the way, was named for the popular song Chelsea Morning. And the Clintons often refer to the Judy Collins version. She made it a big hit, but it was written by Joni Mitchell.
Somewhere along the line, the president has lost his top coat, or placed it at someone else's disposal. He arrived with it. He's obviously gotten rid of it for the day because Willard Scott provided this glorious day. 22 degrees, we're told right about now.
This military review, Bill Clinton does know that people will be watching him carefully when it comes to military decisions, given his opposition to the Vietnam War and the confusion over whether or not he was eager to be in the services or not. He's never served. Al Gore was in Vietnam. His father was in a very tough re-election fight at the time and was opposed to the war, and Al Gore enlisted in the Army and went to Vietnam as a journalist. Taking photographs throughout all of this, and we'll expect some publication of those before too long. She really is quite an accomplished photographer.
She is, and the camera was everywhere on the campaign trail. She confessed to having no pride at all where taking a good picture was concerned, and
I think that's a Tennessee thing. Howard Baker was quite
an accomplished cameraman, in fact.
Exactly right.
Obviously, the military very heavily involved always in the inaugural parades. Part of that harkens back to the fact that our first president was the leader of our armed forces. But each of the 5 military divisions of the U.S. Armed Forces will today wind up leading a division of thematically organized parade for performers, and those performers hail from all of our 50 states and U.S. territories. Everyone will be represented.
We're now about 25 minutes behind schedule. Military, an important component, of course, of our national life, but also no one does ceremony better than the military. Bob Kerr, you're aware, they're at the bottom of the steps looking up at the new president and out at the military review?
That's right, Tom. It's quite a scene. This is the U.S. Army's, they call themselves General Pershing's own U.S. Army marching band. And you can't help but think that this is the realization of what seems to be a lifelong dream for Bill Clinton. It's been said that as 15-year-olds, he and a best friend, a guy he jogged with yesterday, they would play touch football and pretend they were Kennedys on the White House lawn. Something I've read, and from what you've heard of Bill Clinton, that's something you might even believe.
We know that he met his hero, John Kennedy, when he was a delegate to Boys Nation as a 17-year-old. I asked him the other day if he thought then I'd like to have his job someday, and he said no, but I did feel very strongly that I wanted to be involved in public service. I wanted to do something for my country. Al Gore and Bill Clinton, the political offspring of John F. Kennedy and the spirit of the new frontier.
This is a nice send-off for the Clintons and the Gores for the parade that's going to be the cap of the daytime activities, and then, of course, all the galas tonight.
I wonder if you'll be able to find room and time to jog for those of you who are runners, and there are a lot out there. Al Gore does a pretty good job. He ran 8 miles the other day, 9-minute miles at a clip. He says that Bill Clinton has improved a lot. He's running 4 miles and running faster all the time.
And there, of course, is another piece of presidential apparatus which we'll all become even more accustomed to, which was in that Cadillac. He's now using a Cadillac, whereas President Bush used a Lincoln. He appears to be carrying a thermos because he's hardly got in the car when he sat down and poured himself a glass of something hot. Usually decaffeinated coffee, as I recall, Barbara, or diet drink of some sort.
Well, he's had very little time to eat. I think they've all lost weight. Mrs. Gore said that she's down to a size 6 from all of the activities. Maybe I'd like to get the secret. But I think they're all exhausted, and they've got 11 balls to go to tonight. By tomorrow morning, when they have an open house, by tickets, however, it's still considered an open house, we're going to have an exhausted president and first lady.
We will have a chance as the afternoon goes on to indicate, I think, how this inauguration...
Echoing. They have a different sound in the winter than they do when the leaves are on the trees.
The new presidential limousine, poised, ready to travel down Pennsylvania Avenue. $250,000 it costs altogether. It's got public address systems in there, 2 stereo systems, done in tasteful tones of polished wood and blue. 3 presidential seals inside, embroidered.
That one is right now out of our view. It is on the east side of the Capitol. They will then make their way down past our position here at Constitution Avenue and on to Pennsylvania Ave, finally stopping at the reviewing stand in front of the White House, which is where the parade will eventually pass. The parade was to have gotten underway about 13 minutes ago, but as we noted, we are running behind on time. Would suspect that by the time he gets that reviewing stand, we'll be about 20 or 25 minutes behind schedule.
I'll bet more. He's going to get out and walk. I just know it.
Well, we'll see. It'll be a nice touch. If he is going to get out and walk, he has not given any indication of that publicly. He has
Well, they don't want to do that because for security reasons. You remember that George and Barbara Bush walked as well, but they waited till they got to about the Treasury Department, I think, and then walked to the last block and a half down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Of course,
Jimmy and Rosalind Carter got out early and walked the entire distance.
That was the high point of the day. Unfortunately, may have been the high point of the 4 years, too. The crowd, meanwhile, has, it would seem, waited pretty patiently. From our vantage point, most of the people who have been here throughout the day are still there, and their enthusiasm does not seem to be waning. We can now see the first glimpses of the motorcade from our position here.
Very heavy security arrangements around the nation's capital now. Those are not just decorative flower pots. That's part of effectively a cordon around your Capitol building here in Washington, D.C. It's changed dramatically in the last 10 years or so. Now, many more gates to go through. Much more electronic surveillance of every kind. This motorcade is testimony to the heightened security awareness. Bulletproof windows, armor-plated limousine, and a whole lot of outriders.
Some of the military units that were passing in review of the president as he came out of the east side of the Capitol are now leading the parade, making its way down Constitution Avenue towards the intersection with Pennsylvania, and the motorcade will be following in behind those units. Amazing to me the amount of trash that a crowd can leave. We're looking at those areas where people had been standing during the swearing in and have now since taken up positions along the road to watch the parade. But this town that had been swept clean and seemed litter-free only hours ago now just seems laden with paper.
Manhole cover along the motorcade route has been welded shut. Every office window and rooftop along the parade route has been checked and rechecked. Newspaper racks removed. There are sharpshooters all along the way, and an untold number of plainclothes security people within those crowds.
What would have been our first inauguration with such security? Johnson's?
It wasn't as great for Johnson. I really think that it began to change when the hostages began to be taken in the Middle East after the Iran situation. I think it was greatly heightened when you think back during the Reagan inauguration. But, for example, the Jimmy Carter administration, that inaugural day was not nearly as tightly controlled for security purposes. There's always an enormous amount of protection around the president, obviously. But it's been heightened by my rough estimate by a factor of 10. They shut down whole sections of town for a half an hour or 45 minutes before he leaves an area that is some distance from where he's going to get to. And it's very hard for us to know the exact nature of the threat. They get lots of anonymous calls, and they pick up all kinds of intelligence of things, so it can be an enormous nuisance in a free democracy, but at the same time, we don't have enough information to be absolutely critical of it.
We would get an awful lot of support for the nuisance factor this week. People have been trying to make their way around town, would normally allow 10 minutes for travel from one site to another, are finding that it takes 3 and 4 times that time because sections are closed off, as you know.
Time in coming, this moment. Democrats reclaiming the White House. Bill Clinton and Al Gore And their contemporaries grew up with John F. Kennedy, and they thought that he would set the standard for the rest of their adult lives. And then, of course, he was snatched away by an assassin's bullet. That gave way to Lyndon Johnson, who had one full term, and then a run of Republicans interrupted only briefly by Jimmy Carter for 4 years. And the last 12 years, it has been Ronald Reagan and George Bush. Katie Couric, you're down there in the motorcade?
Yeah. Is that you, Tom?
Sure is.
Hi, Tom. You know, they finally have the national media where they want us. We've been put on these flatbed trucks with fencing around us. Luckily, they're not electric fences, and we're not headed to the stockyards. But I just have to show you a quick view of what we look like in the media. Tim, if you can just pan over and shoot all those still photographers. You can see at very close quarters here following the presidential motorcade, but really it is the best seat in the House. Tim, if you can come back around and show us President Clinton and Mrs. Clinton and Chelsea, they're right behind me in that limousine, as you can see. According to some Secret Service agents I spoke with, there's a really good possibility that they will get out and shake hands with the crowd. In fact, there was a big joke going around Capitol Hill, Tom and Bryant, that some of the security guards had to remove the right hands on the statue, lest Bill Clinton stop and shake those as well. So there's a very good possibility that he's going to get out and want to mingle with the crowd. The crowds are amazing here. They're about 12 deep. They're on both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, and there are a lot of them holding flags. The first sign that the president was able to see was Republicans for Clinton, and that must have made him feel very good indeed. Now, right behind him, there's a security package, a number of Secret Service agents, and that is followed by a car carrying Vice President and Mrs. Gore, their 3 daughters, and their son. Then they're followed by another so-called vice presidential escort, and just like the Bowles, the vice presidential escort is smaller than the presidential escort.
Katie, we're getting a shot looking east as the motorcade comes along behind you. You getting any indication as to where he might get out?
You know, no one knows, and as Tom, I think, mentioned earlier, Bryant, I think for security reasons, they would never let that kind of information get out. So we'll just have to wait and see what he does.
Now,
but,
Katie, we would assume that if he gets out and has anything to say, he'll say it to you.
Sure, he's just going to walk straight over to our flatbed truck, Bryant, and talk to me probably for about 15 minutes or so.
And Britt Hume standing right behind you will just let you have the entire interview, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Britt's a real gentleman.
Well, Katie, I dare say I don't think that you'll probably be able to generate much public sympathy for the press being penned up on a flatbed truck. I think there are a whole lot of folks out there who believe that that's where we belong most of the time. I'm led to wonder if there aren't young people out there today who heard that speech of Bill Clinton calling them to public service, who are watching this and are thinking, someday I want to ride down Pennsylvania Avenue in a presidential motorcade. The chief executive of the United States, who are inspired by this young man, 46 years of age, who's come to the most powerful job in the world.
A lot of enthusiasm on this Wednesday afternoon. Right. Some of the youngsters who managed to get front row seats, or standing room, I should say, on Constitution Avenue for a glimpse of the presidential motorcade as it makes its way up Constitution Avenue and then the turn onto Pennsylvania Avenue. From there, proceeding to the reviewing stand where all the parade participants will be passing in review.
And you're quite right, the parade officially is not underway yet. This is the forerunner of the parade is the president proceeding down Pennsylvania Avenue, accepting the acclaim of the American people, and then he will review the parade as it begins. And it's now well behind schedule, Bryant. We're going to be 35, 40 minutes behind schedule before this is all over. That's one of the few signs of protest. That's referring, of course, to what is going on in Iraq. For his part, Clinton has said to Saddam Hussein that he will continue the policies of George Bush, that if Saddam Hussein continues to defy the UN resolutions, he will continue the military attacks against those targets. And as he said on Sunday, as we talked about this, I will do what I have to do. Larson, Brian's Today Show colleague of NBC News, is down there at the Navy Memorial. Margaret, a lot of enthusiasm.
Tom, yes, indeed. There are a lot of young people, a lot of children, families who've been out here since 6:30 this morning waiting to have a good seat for this parade, and they are seeing the fruits of their labor now as the U.S. Army Infantry Staff and Field Band and the Military Academy and Army Active Company come rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue in advance of the President and his wife. We're seeing a lot of American flags being waved. There have been some people who've come by earlier passing these flags out. People have been very generous to pass them back to the folks who didn't have such great seats so that everybody could pay honor to this country and to the new president. We're waiting, and we understand the president is a couple of blocks away now. We're here on 9th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue, across the street from the National Archives. We're about halfway between the White House and the Capitol. Everybody here, as you can see, waving the flag, letting out a cheer, waiting to greet the new president.
See you. Kirk, you're still down there penned up in that flatbed truck?
Yeah, I'm still here, Tom. I'm not going anywhere.
We like it so we know we can find you every time.
That's right. Hey, Tom and Brian, I should point out that President Clinton has been saying, hey, how you doing? Glad to see you, through some kind of loudspeaker coming from his car. So while he hasn't actually gotten out and touched anybody yet, he's touching them with his voice.
Yeah, that new limo that Tom was alluding to has a public address system.
Wow, that's like James Bond, isn't it?
Yeah, if one of the seats ejects, let us know.
Yeah, I will.
It's the incredible talking limousine.
That's right.
If anyone is concerned about the schedule, and it doesn't seem that they are, they're now running somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 minutes behind schedule. But again, no one seems to be in a hurry to make it up.
We have all kinds of things that we've accumulated over the past several months getting ready for this occasion, and we want to make sure that you know everything that there is to know about Bill Clinton and this day and what we can expect. For example, in Washington, trying to take advantage of the arrival of Bill Clinton, there's already a new restaurant called Slick Willie's on Pennsylvania Avenue. On the menu, Big Willie burgers, double-deckers of beef and cheese, Arkansas chicken, and Sloppy Al's. They were called Sloppy Joe's before the inauguration. And Bill Clinton, who is known as almost an incurable snack food addict, although he now claims that he's gone cold turkey and he's not eating any of it anymore.
No burgers?
No, he says that he's absolutely cut all of that out. But apparently we've done some detailed research on this, and cinnamon glazed California almonds are his favorite. 1 ounce, 176 calories, 16 grams of fat, 1 cup, 970 calories. That sounds like the diet that you and I both eat.
Yeah, right. Tell how much of this stuff that you read is apocryphal. You were a Beltway resident for some time. Maybe you can tell me, is it true that Pennsylvania Avenue is so named to mollify the folks in that state who were somewhat upset because the capital had been moved from Philadelphia to Washington?
That's right. That's the understanding.
David, and then they began to pick it up.
Yeah, it filled up with novelty stores, souvenir stores selling T-shirts with funny sayings on them, and fireworks, that kind of junk. And John Kennedy was disgusted with it. And he formed a committee to study it and then to do something about it, and Congress put up the money, and a lot of private money was spent. And it's now, it's not perfect by any means, but it's a whole lot better looking than it was.
Now, if we can stay with that picture for a moment, this suggests to me something. This suggests to me that President Clinton or somebody in this joint inaugural committee has prevailed on the Secret Service, because the Secret Service was, for one thing, going to go to the Willard Hotel, which isn't very far from that spot, and nail shut all the windows that fronted on Pennsylvania Avenue. And the operators of all the other buildings along the parade route had been warned not to use balconies or rooftops during the parade. We all know there were Secret Service agents and sharpshooters all over those roofs, but it is really nice to see the public there as well.
Some of those buildings are new. I think those two have apartments in them. People live in them.
I don't think I make a trail not too far behind by his Vice President Al Gore. We're at the Navy Memorial now, and if I recall correctly, NBC's Margaret Larson is there. That's Pennsylvania. That's where they are, right there. You can see on Pennsylvania Avenue. A place that has really been restored, by the way, in quite grand fashion. Margaret, are they about your location?
Tom, they're just coming up now. In fact, the announcer, Katie's waving to her. She's right in front of me right now. The announcer here locally just said that Bill Clinton was on his way, and the crowd literally went bananas. Just an explosion of American flags and red, white, and blue pom-poms. Everybody waiting to see the president, and of course hoping that this will be the spot that he chooses to jump out of the car and give the Secret Service a coronary and say hello to everyone. But so far, that hasn't happened. We encourage him, though. Let me see if I can wave him over. That's not going to work. Tommy's passing by right now, and again, the crowd extremely enthusiastic.
Margaret, is he still making liberal use of that PA system?
No, not right now. In fact, the only thing I can hear is just the crowd behind me waving and cheering, and we had a little bit of music earlier, but no, we haven't heard a thing out of that loudspeaker here.
How deep are the crowds there? What are we talking, 4 or 5 deep, or more along the 10, 12
no, much more
range?
than that. 4 and 5 deep when that is all that can fit, but there is a reviewing stand behind me that's probably 10, 15 rows deep. It is completely full, and in lots of places, people are 20, 25 deep. Children generally sitting along the curbside where the security cordoned off the street, and behind them as many people as can possibly fit. It's absolutely packed here.
There was a time in American life, of course, when presidents rode to the Capitol and back in open cars, in convertibles. That time came to an end on a November afternoon in 1963 in Dallas, Texas.
Go back into my notes to find it. It seems that Warren G. Harding, back in 1921, was the first of our presidents to even use one of those automobiles to go back and forth to his inauguration. He had a couple of firsts. His was also the first to be described on radio, though the coverage was very limited. And his was the first time loudspeakers were used, and the public could listen into the events as they went.
Here's a very recent demonstration of the limits of power. George Stephanopoulos, who is the new White House communications director, very close to the new president, was walking back to the White House from the Capitol after the swearing in, got caught in the crowd near the Commerce Department, and was trapped there. Had to get a reporter to flag down a police car. The police car had a call on a radio to check it out. Is George Stephanopoulos really who he says he is? And they said, yes, he is.
What?
And then they said, okay, you can cross the courtyard of the Commerce Department to get back in. Fact is, I'm sure when the policeman looked at George Stephanopoulos, said, that's a visiting 7th grader.
I was about to say it was not helped by the fact that the very youthful Mr. Stephanopoulos looks like the choir boy in about the 7th grade. Great, we'll go back in just a moment. Lots more ahead of the parade on this Inauguration Day 93.
Motorcade route as Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and their daughter Chelsea make their way down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Pennsylvania Avenue Parade Reviewing Stand right in front of their new address at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the White House, of course. There is so much emphasis on youth in this administration. This president and his vice president are younger than the Beatles, younger than Mick Jagger, younger than a lot of us in America, of course, who have gotten used to the idea that presidents are almost always older, but these two are not. And if you think they're young, wait until you begin to see the people that they have immediately around them in the White House. George Stephanopoulos, just 31 years old, for example. A whole lot of folks in the 30-something generation, and a good many of them who have key positions who are only 20-something. NBC's Maria Shriver, whose name shall remain a secret, is standing by at the presidential reviewing stand now with Dee Dee Myers, who's another member of the young crowd, right, Maria?
That's right, Tom. She is. She's just gotten here. And what can you tell us how the president feels? How did he think he did?
He feels great. It's been a fantastic day from the church service this morning to the whole swearing-in process, his meeting with the president here in the White House earlier this morning.
What was that like? How would you describe the mood between the two men? What did they talk about? What did Barbara Bush and Hillary Clinton talk about?
Well, I think it was a very amicable meeting. I think in many ways a sad day for President Bush, as he said goodbye to many of the people that have worked in the White House for the last 4 years and that he's seen for the last 12 years. But he's been very gracious throughout this transition, and today was no exception.
I talked to a couple of people in here who work in the White House who are bringing food and drinks in and out, and they said that they would describe it as very sad in there. Is that the mood?
Well, I think it was a sad day for the Bushes, and it's President Clinton is a very sensitive person, and I think he understands what it's like to lose. He has great respect for President Bush. I think he wishes him all the best, and I think he sort of understood how President Bush was feeling at that point.
What advice did Barbara Bush give Hillary Clinton?
I don't know. But as you know, when the first time they met and Barbara Bush gave Hillary a tour of the White House, Hillary just was so impressed by how friendly she was, and she gave her some very interesting advice, and the two of them have a really terrific rapport.
Okay, Dee Dee Myers, thank you. Now, I hope you're going to go into the reviewing stand and help us so that we can talk to Roger Clinton, Hillary's brothers, or Virginia Kelly, all of who went by here and are said that they're not allowed to talk to anybody, but I hope you'll help us out. Dee Dee Myers, back to you, Brian.
All right, Maria Shriver, thanks so very much. Also along the parade route this morning, we haven't heard from Sumi's still on the parade route. We haven't been able to talk to him for a couple of hours. It's our Tom Pettit. Tom, where are you and what's going on?
Hello, Tom Pettit. This crowd at 13th and Pennsylvania is expecting him to get out of the car here. That is their hope, and that is their wish. I'm here with an 89-year-old former school teacher from Memphis, Tennessee, Dora Todd. Did you ever think you would see this?
I certainly did not, and I thank God for the privilege of doing so.
You were here for John F. Kennedy's parade, were you, or not?
I was not. I wanted to be, but I was working there. But now I'm free at last. I'm here.
You're thankful that you're here alive, right?
I'm thankful that I'm here and alive and able to witness such an occasion.
What would you say to the president if you could?
If I could talk to this president, I'd tell him to do your job and do a good one. God bless.
Dora Todd, 89 years old, from Memphis, Tennessee. Among the well-wishers lining Pennsylvania Avenue, just past the District of Columbia building now. Well, they had hoped he would get out of the car.
Let's go down to NBC's Katie Couric, who is in that motorcade on the back of a flatbed truck that's been arranged for a television journalist. And Katie is there now. Katie, we are very close to the White House, so if he's going to get out, it's probably going to be fairly soon.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, Tom. I'm actually somewhat surprised he hasn't gotten out already, but we'll just have to see what he does now. You know, Bryant was asking Margaret earlier if the crowds were 4 or 5 deep. It is just unbelievable. In some cases, the crowds take up 2 city blocks. There are so many people out here to catch a glimpse of Bill Clinton. And, of course, there are millions and millions of little miniature flags being waved all over the place, and a lot of signs like "We love Bill and Al" and "Welcome Socks." And then other people are using the opportunity to make a political statement by holding up signs that say things like "AIDS can't wait" and "Keep abortion legal." But for the most part, it's just a bunch of a sort of sea of little American flags and a lot of very, very excited people.
Katie, how many blocks to the White House now? It's at 1600 Pennsylvania. What are you at, about 1400?
Actually, we're right at 15th Street, Tom, so we're just getting ready to turn that corner and do that little zigzag that you have to do to get to the White House. So, you know, it would be really surprising, at least to me, if he does not get out of the car. I don't know what you guys think, but I put my money on a few handshakes out here on Pennsylvania Avenue.
In fairness to him, they are running so far behind schedule that he might be under considerable pressure to make sure that they try to pick up a little bit of time. But you're right, at this point now, it would almost be an upset if he went there all the way in the car.
And, Bryant, you know, Washingtonians go absolutely bananas when these dignitaries, whether they're U.S. or foreign dignitaries, get out of their car. I remember when I was a local news reporter, Mikhail Gorbachev got out of his limousine on Connecticut and K Street and shook all these hands of all these office workers, and boy, that scored major points here in Washington.
Yeah, on that occasion, there was kind of an apocryphal story that he was getting out to go to Duke Zeber's, and then somebody told him about the quality of the food, and he went back into the car. he's now made the turn there. That's just by the Treasury Department. The back of the Treasury Department has only the faintest possible resemblance to the steps of the Capitol, but there was someone in town last night who drove by and said, gee, that doesn't look like you're ready for tomorrow's swearing in yet. And we had to point out, no, that's not the Capitol, that's the Treasury Department.
What time was this observation, Tom?
It was after 4 cocktail parties.
I was going to say, there had to be a reason.
Tom and Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can, Katie. Go ahead.
I just saw a man in a wheelchair, and I know Margaret mentioned this earlier, but there is wheelchair accessibility all along the parade route, as well as sign language interpreters. Oh, here he goes. He's getting out of the limo. We thought it would happen, and it is.
The overwings.
Yep.
I think it was about here that George Bush was.
Is that right? Secret Service obviously scrambling in advance of the new president.
4 years ago, Bill Clinton was in Little Rock, Arkansas on this day, worrying about trying to get a 1% increase in the Arkansas sales tax and trying to get a new prison built for his state. Now he assumes the burdens and the excitement and responsibilities of being chief executive of the most powerful nation in the world.
It would appear that he's getting out not necessarily to shake hands, but to walk the rest of the way onto the White House.
Secret Service will not want him getting too close to that crowd. They just cannot control what's going on there. And as one who was witnessed twice with Gerald Ford, once when a gun was pulled on him and another time when he was shot, it's the prudent course. There are no metal detectors along the parade route to get people into those places, so they just don't know what's going on in that crowd.
Hey, Katie, we saw Chelsea get out of the car, but she's not in our view right now. Where is she?
Brian, I was just trying to figure out where she went, and I see a figure waving out of the limo, and I believe that Chelsea got back into the limo, because rest assured, if she were out of the limo, she would be in plain view, I would think, and surrounded by Secret Service agents. The crowd is absolutely going nuts. And as you all mentioned, they don't seem to be shaking any hands, but President Clinton's doing a lot of waving and gesturing to a very appreciative crowd. For some reason, Tom, he is not headed in my direction.
Must not know you're there, Katie.
First miscalculation he's made all day, Katie.
I was convinced Hillary was going to go kiss Willard just as Barbara Bush did in 1989, but apparently she's opting not to.
Has she passed his position, Katie?
I'm not sure, you know, Bryant. I don't really know. What is his position?
No, I think he's right across from the reviewing stand, so we still have... Katie, help us, Katie, with what Mrs. Clinton is wearing.
No, I was afraid you'd ask me that, Tom, you fashion plate you. So let me tell you, I came prepared. She was wearing a cadet blue princess-shaped coat. She's wearing, well, this says a fuchsia dress, but that doesn't look like a fuchsia dress.
No, it's a two-piece wool suit, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Do you think she changed between the swearing in and this event?
That's possible.
Well,
no, that looks like what she had on this morning when she went to the church service.
It was. Okay, well, then this wire story I got was incorrect. She is wearing a hat, as you can see. And it's a blue velour hat with a big off-the-face brim by Darcy Creech, a Connecticut milliner, which completes her ensemble.
Well done. Even though she is determined to reshape the role of First Lady, to represent her generation, if you will, of women who have taken their place or are determined to, side by side with the men of this country, inevitably there is going to be attention to what she wears and how she dresses, what designers she favors, how she conducts herself. They have obviously spotted somebody they know in the crowd. And they know a lot of people. These two have been crossing the country for a long time, and there's the Gore family. 3 daughters and a son. This is their home. The Gores have been living here for a long time. They met when he was a senior at St. Albans. Tipper and Al Gore did, and he was a standout athlete and a very good student, went on to Harvard.
But they will move into the vice presidential residency.
Yes, and
over the Admiralty, right?
those are good digs up off Massachusetts Avenue. Hard to believe that it was less than a year ago that Bill Clinton almost stumbled in his first presidential primary in New Hampshire and then came back just far enough to survive to go on to the southern primaries. Seems like this has been going on for 10 years. Bill Clinton was a student at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. He ran, as someone said, for freshman class president in the first 10 minutes and for student body president in the first 30 minutes of his arrival, and was elected to both jobs. Now they come directly on to the final stretch past Lafayette Park. Begin to see the full majesty of their new residence. To absorb the acclamation of the crowd.
Just let me pass on one little piece of business. We just found out that the Senate has, as expected, approved President Clinton's choice of Lloyd Bentsen as Treasury Secretary. They voted, we understand, a little more than 2 hours after Bill Clinton was sworn in. It's to act later today on the nominations of Les Aspin as Defense Secretary and Warren Christopher as Secretary of State. Willard Scott is opposite the reviewing stand down there. Willie?
Is that you, Brian?
Yeah, I hear you, my friend. What's going on?
Bless your heart. The sun is absolutely glorious today. It's about 45 degrees. You couldn't ask for a better inauguration. We are right across from the White House next to the Treasury, and the truck with all the folks coming by now indicates the president probably is only about 3 minutes away from us, where we're standing at Madison, right here on Pennsylvania Avenue. Of course, we see the camera crews and the photographers, and I know Katie's in one of those trucks. But we're going to try to get a hug. We're waiting for the president, of course, Mrs. Clinton and Chelsea, and I don't know, Sox. Is Sox in this parade?
I think Sox is checking out the new digs at the White House at the moment. Right.
Who do you see? Hey, look out.
That whole area, as we have said, has been restored, and just around the corner from there is the Willard Hotel, and it was in that hotel that was to be torn down that Abraham Lincoln spent the night before his inauguration when he first came to Washington.
Willard, help me out with the geography. Can you see the Clintons from your position right there?
I just can right now, Brian, just as you mentioned it, as a matter of fact. And I guess maybe 100 yards away from us right now. He's on the southern side of the street, right in front of the Treasury, and he loves the crowd, and the crowd loves him. He's getting a very warm welcome. American flags being waved, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Congressional Medal of Honor winners, and they look terrific from where I'm standing. And we're going to try to get them as they come by.
In her poem this morning, that evocative piece by Maya Angelou, she talked about the rocks and the trees and what they have been witness to. And the rocks and trees in Lafayette Park have been witness to so many triumphs and so many tragedies here on Pennsylvania Avenue, the site of the funeral of John F. Kennedy. The triumph, of course, just 3 years before of his arrival in his capital. The street down which Franklin Roosevelt proceeded to the White House when he was inaugurated. And it was down the street as well that his casket was born. I remember vividly the night that Richard Nixon was forced to resign from the presidency. Great mixture of solemnity sorrow, and celebration on the part of a lot of people who were happy to see him go. Jimmy Carter walked down this street. Ronald Reagan came down Pennsylvania Avenue after having happily announced that the hostages were free. George and Barbara Bush 4 years ago, and now the turn of Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Willard, I know what a shrinking violet you are, but I would assume you're taking appropriate steps to make sure that the First Family notices your presence.
Okay. Hey, Mr. President! Hey, Mr. President! Hey, fantastic! Incredible! Huh? Hey, Mr. President! Come on over. Give me a hug. Yeah,
Willard Bulldog Scott. Go get him, Willie.
We had a shot, but that's it. We gave it. I lost 5 pounds.
Well, you're 1-1,
hey.
Lord.
Hey. Hey, Chelsea. Fantastic. Fantastic.
I think in fairness to Willard and all the others who want very much to reach out and touch the president, Secret Service has worked this out well in advance with the Clintons. They say you're going to stray no farther than 4 feet on either side of that middle stripe. And for security purposes, that's where you have to stay. We just can't allow you to go beyond that. And we ask your cooperation in that. And then if you go across to one group, how do you resist going to the next?
It wasn't for Willard's lack of effort.
No.
That's for sure. Katie was still up front there.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Bryant. I was just pointing at some of the dignitaries I just saw. Admiral Crowgan, General Powell, Sandra Day O'Connor of the Supreme Court, obviously, are sitting right under this presidential seal. Anyway, that's where those are really the high-priced tickets under this really cover. So in bad weather, they'll have no problem at all. But still, there are some other people who are sitting in these bleacher seats that cost anywhere from $10 to $50 to $100. Something tells me that these seats cost, I'm sure, $100 and not the $10 or $50. And as Bryant said earlier, only 15% of the tickets available went to the general public, compared to 50% back in 1989 during the Bush inaugural. So it's questionable whether this inauguration was for the people as much as it was advertised as such.
We've been dwelling on that some, but the fact is that you have not heard a whole lot of complaints from the public so far. I mean, I think that everybody seems to be having a good time. Perry Thomason said this morning that they expect to make a profit on all of us and pay back the government.
He told Katie that. I was a little bit surprised. He refused to identify the exact price of this celebration.
Let's go to Maria Shriver, who's there with Perry Thomason right now. Maria?
Oh, okay, Tom, I'm sorry. We can barely hear you because I think the president has stopped right out in front of the reviewing stand. But I am here with Mr. Thomason, who has been organizing all of this. And you were here with the president this morning. How did he say he felt? What was he excited about?
I think he's ready to get the job started and maybe get on with the ceremony.
Does he feel overwhelmed by all of these activities?
Well, he didn't say, but I certainly feel overwhelmed by all the activities. So it would have to be overwhelming to stand up in that sea of people. I don't know how many were there, and look out and know that you're about to be the next president of the United States.
Did he say he was nervous this morning?
No, he was perfectly calm and in a good mood.
It's incredible to think that he wasn't nervous, though, getting ready to make the speech of his life, take on the job that he's been dreaming about since he was a little boy.
I would certainly think he would have to be nervous, but he certainly didn't display any nervousness.
You are going to be spending the night here at the White House tomorrow night?
Right, we're going to try out the Lincoln bedroom tomorrow night.
What did they say? Have they had a chance to go look through the house, get their stuff in order?
Not yet.
Not at all.
Later today.
And so he's going to walk in here. You're going to sit in here and join him?
That's right.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much for stopping,
Maria?
and congratulations. Tom?
Maria?
Yeah?
Bill Clinton came all the way from Hope, Arkansas. Ask Harry what it's like to be a former high school football coach from Arkansas and get to this position.
What, Tom Brokaw wants to know, and I think if I understood him, what it's like to be a former high school football coach and come all this way.
Still crowds cheering.
It feels good.
It feels good, and coaching was good, and this is good. And the fact that a friend of ours is the president is very good, and very good because we think he'll do his best to do what he said he would do in his campaign and make this country a better place.
Do you think he has a sense of how much his life has changed and is about to change?
I think he already has a sense of how much freedom you lose when you become president of the United States, and it must be it has to be the most demanding job in the world.
Your life's changed a lot by being his pal, too.
It has.
Harry Thomason, thanks so much. Have a great day. Thanks a lot. Tom?
Maria, we were just laughing at her because Harry and Linda Thomas are looking forward to their evening in the White House in the Lincoln bedroom. I do believe that last night Billy Graham was the gentleman who spent the night in the Lincoln bedroom as the last guest of George and Barbara Bush.
Well, that's a change.
Guest bedroom.
That's right. Linda said that Linda Bloodworth Thomason said she wanted to jump up and down on the bed, but Hillary said, no, it may not be a good idea. Maybe a little more fragile than being able to withstand that. We've just gotten a news bulletin here of no great urgency. Les Aspin has now been confirmed as Secretary of Defense. That was fully expected, of course. He went singing through. The only hitch right now in the cabinet is Zoe Baird. She has to testify some more tomorrow. And then the question is, will she get confirmed by the full Senate? There is beginning to build, according to senators that I've been talking to, some movement out in the country saying that perhaps she should not be confirmed for having acknowledged that she broke the law by hiring illegal aliens, failing to pay Social Security taxes. Let's just look here for a few moments at Bill and Hillary Clinton relishing this moment.